All right, and good evening, and welcome back to the Dunnigan Mott Music and Movie Podcast Reboot. I'm Devin Dunnigan, and with me, as always, is Mr. Stephen Mott. How you doing, Stephen?
Great, Brother Z.
All right, Elwood. Well, today we're going to be doing the album 5150 by Van Halen, released in 1986, and produced by Mick Jones, a foreigner, Don Landy, who had been involved with the band prior to this album. I think he was an engineer on all of the past albums. And Van Halen itself. It was recorded at 5150 Studios, and it was actually released on March 24th, 1986. It was recorded from November 1985 through February of 86. And yeah, this particular album, this was my pick. I enjoyed last week's episode where we were kind of opposed on the album itself, and Merle Haggard's Chicago Wind album. And I decided to do something maybe we both kind of disliked. And from what I understand, I think I'm kind of right on this. And I mean, with my history of Van Halen, I mean, the FM hits is what really got me into. Well, the FM hits I've always kind of knew, and then the Rock and Metal Combat podcast got me into Van Halen. But this particular album, I heard my dad had a cassette of it. I think he was a DJ back in the day, so he had like the top 40 stuff. And I eventually asked him why he had the album. He said, I don't even remember now, because he doesn't really even like this era of the band. But I mean, I listened to it. I like 3 songs off of it, but the rest I said is I just said is not very good. I've heard this album several times since, but I mean, logically, this is the next. This is kind of the logical progression from 1984. I mean, 1984 kind of brought keyboards in and stuff like that, and this album was a direct progression from that. But to me, Eat 'Em a Smile is the much better album, and more Van Halen like album than this. And I actually did a review with the guys from the Freeform Rock podcast on my other podcast, the Danger Zone podcast, and I want to thank them guys for coming on there and doing that. But this album, I mean, if you don't already know, I really kind of don't like this album. I said in the previous episode that I said I didn't like it at first, and I said, well, I kind of like it. I said I kind of liked it because I wanted to be optimistic. I didn't know how my opinions were going to be going into this particular episode, but I really don't like it. But what about you, Steven? I mean, I've been rambling on here for a little bit now, but what were your kind of introduction to Van Halen and stuff like that? How did you come to find out the band, and your initial thoughts on this album?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'd never even heard of this album before you suggested that we review it. So, and the only time I'd ever heard anything by Van Halen is on the radio, like you kind of mentioned before. You know, about 3 of them off of this album that was real big. They're still playing those on the classic rock radio now. Like Love Walks In and Why Can't This Be Love and Dreams. Those 3, they play still now. And I knew those. And like you said, a couple of other ones. Running with the Devil, that one I knew of. But other than that, I hadn't really got into any other Van Halen besides this or this really before. I only listened to this one twice before we went into this review. So this is kind of me and Devin's point of view from it, from not listening to it that much. He's heard it some before, but this is only my second time opinion on it. So this is going to be very interesting for sure.
Definitely. And I mean, Sammy Hagar, I mean, I talked about it on the episode. It hasn't been released yet, but it'll be released before this particular episode comes out, and probably before the Merle Haggard Chicago Wind episode comes out. But I talked in depth about me thinking Sammy Hagar was not a very good lyricist. I'll get into that a lot more in this album. I think he is a weak lyricist, but I mean, I said in that particular episode that I like the first Montrose album. I really do. I think the first Montrose album is pretty good. I actually listened to that the other night. I revisited it, and I liked it. I revisited it. If I can't, man, I can't speak at all, but I like that album still. I think that album holds up pretty good. I mean, that was kind of America's answer to Led Zeppelin, and I mean, putting that on a scale with Led Zeppelin, I mean, Led Zeppelin wins obviously, but I mean, there was actually prior to getting with Sammy Hagar, Eddie Van Halen and Alex Van Halen were actually considering having a series of temporary singers to replace David Lee Roth, who had left in '85. And that included Patti Smythe, Eric Martin, who would later go on to be in Mr. Big, and Jimmy Barnes. And if I'm not bad wrong, I also heard that Phil Collins was in there somewhere, if I'm not bad wrong. But I mean, actually, from what I understand, Warner Brothers Records wanted them to discontinue the Van Halen name. They didn't want them to use the Van Halen name for this album. And I mean, of course, Eddie and Alex Van Halen refused. And then the fans basically coined the term Van Hagar, either encouraging the band or discouraging it. But I mean, like I said, they went to work on this album in November of '85 and finished in February. It was released in March. And like I said, kind of the logical progression from '84, but to me, Eat 'em and Smile is that's the follow up to '84. And then A Different Kind of Truth is kind of that great, kind of of right now. I mean, that's the conclusion of the discography. But I mean, that if that is the last album, I mean, what a way to go out on. That's a great album. But that's all I have to say, pretty much. And yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get into the album. I've got a plethora of notes taken for this particular album. And let's get into the first track on the album. I think I've covered everything as far as the backstory goes. If I haven't, I'll talk about it throughout the review. But the first track on the album, Good Enough, a blatant attempt to be a Diamond Dave era type song. I like this song. I mean, the opening, Hello Baby, it's obviously, it's a homage to the Big Bopper Chantilly Lace. Fun. I like this song. I think it's a fun song. Overall, this was it's one of the better songs on the album, and one of the three songs I actually liked the first time I heard this album. The lyrics seem to deal with food, but I kind of get the feeling that it's a bit of a double entendre. The bridge before the solo is pretty cool, and the solo's good, and it picks the song up to me, in my opinion. Cool breakdown, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this particular track. I think it's one of the better tracks on the album, as I said, and I like it. I think it's a good song. But now to you, Stephen. What do you think of Good Enough?
Well, I would say this was overall a terrible song in my opinion. And really, I think I would just like to say, first of all, that overall, I didn't mind the production of this whole album. It was actually pretty decent. The whole problem with me is with other things, which I'll get into later, including songwriting itself. But anyway, so this song in particular, really, it wasn't great to start with, and then on top of that, the lead guitar, it really wasn't that good to me. There were too many dive bombs, which really I can relate that to all the album. I don't like dive bombs all the way to begin with. I don't really think it fits well with this band either. And I don't like the song overall, to tell you the truth. And that's kind of the whole, really kind of mantra of the whole album, besides the three. the three main ones that we're going to get into later. And really, in my opinion, not to go too much into the rest, but I'll just say this, that this whole overall thing, it seems to me like that they had about 3 songs, or maybe 2, 3 songs written, and like they didn't know, they didn't have any more material, so they just said, well, maybe we'll just make this concept album, and try to make it more heavy metal, try to emulate the other albums, like you said earlier, and it was kind of, I think that's why it didn't come out as well as it could have, even halfway as good as it could have, because I think they relied too much. This song in particular, to me, it kind of shows that they relied too much on trying to be a certain way or genre. So I guess that's for that one, brother. What I've got.
All right, and going to the production real quick. I mean, the first time listening to this before reviewing this, I had a problem with the production. This last time listening to it, I didn't have the biggest problem. I thought the production was okay. The biggest problem I had at first was with the drums. That didn't bother me the second time around listening to it beforehand, because I listened to it twice, as you had said. And I mean, the second time I went into this, I actually thought I was really going to like it. But I mean, after about the third song, I was like, okay, never mind. That's not going to be the case. But I mean, yeah, I don't mind the production. I think the production's okay on this album. I think it's pretty good. And I guess I'll say I like the production on this album for whatever reason. And I mean, I'll say it right now. I mean, this era of the band and the Diamond Dave era of the band, they're two totally different monsters. They're two totally different beasts. And I mean, to me, I mean, I call this is Van Hagar to me. I mean, it's Van Halen and Van Hagar. It's two totally different eras, two totally different bands, which happen to have similar members. But yeah, good enough. Like I said, I kind of like it. And then we go into the next track. Why Can't This Be Love? Another one of those songs that I liked on the very first time I heard this and or heard this album, and I think it's a good song, good pop rock song, very very keyboard heavy, and the solo is by Sammy Hagar, and just good. It's a good song, good vocals, and Hagar's solo is okay. It's nothing mind blowing, but this is like one of the few songs that Hagar actually performs guitar on during his whole tenure in the band. But yeah, this is a pretty good song, and I meant to say a minute ago talking about the previous couple of times I listened to this album. The first time around, I hated this whole album, and the second time, of course, now I listened to it, I was more relaxed for one thing listening to it. So I was able to kind of nitpick a lot better the second time around than the first time around, because I got really kind of mad the first time listening to it again. It had been the first time in a while since I'd heard it, but yeah, that's my opinion on Why Can't This Be Love. What about you, Steven?
Well, I think this is a tremendous song start with, but then again, on this album, it doesn't fit. Going back to what I said before, it kind of seemed like they had some good songs, and they didn't have any more good material. And really, they just didn't have. They just had to have something to stick it on, so they just stuck it onto this. And really, it shouldn't have been on this album, to tell you the truth. But I'm kind of interested to know the amount. I mean, I've looked at the YouTube description on all of these, and it looks like the same people wrote all of these songs. The combination of Alex Van Halen, Eddie, and the two others. I can't really remember, to tell you the truth, but I guess they wrote this whole album about the same time period. But to me, it sounds like they probably wrote the three the best ones to me. This one, Dreams, and Love Comes Walking In, or whatever, Love Walks In. Seems like they probably wrote those first because they all have a similar sound to them. And to me, they should have stuck. They should have stuck with that concept. And this would have been an actually really decent album if they would have stuck to that. A little bit more of a popish sort of sound concept. I guess I could describe it as. That's the only thing I can think of, really. More of a, not softer, kind of a softer sound, but more of a like soft rock sort of feel. That's the only thing I can think of to describe it. And anyway, I've always liked this song pretty well. I guess that's about all I can say for it. Instruments and all, I love it.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, this is the second one out of well, I'm not gonna say how many I like on this album, but this is the second one I like on this album. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have, I believe, for this particular song. And let me see real quick what single that was released. What singles were released from this album is what I meant to say. This was the final single to be released off the album, so that's pretty interesting. And it went number 3 on the Billboard 100. So then we move to the next track on the album, Get Up. The third track on the album, Get Up. A good beginning riff, but after that it goes downhill. I don't like it that much. Pretty stupid song. The chorus is stupid. There's some swearing in the songs that I think is just there just to be edgy. I don't even really understand the lyrics at all. I can't understand what he's saying. And the solo is pretty good, though. I do like the solo, but overall, a kind of train wreck of a song. And this whole album to me feels rushed and disjointed. And I mean, this is no exception to that, what I just said. And I mean, pretty terrible train wreck of a song. And that's all I have to say about this particular track. Now to you, Stephen. What's your thoughts on this?
About Get Up, I think the riff is terrible. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. That's just really, really what I think. And besides that, the riff to me sounds literally out of tune, like it's not even in the right key, and it sounds to me like slide. And really, I mean, that's not really a good concept to use with this genre, in my opinion. It doesn't ever come out really sounding that good to use slide with hard rock or whatever you want to call this. And furthermore, like he said, I don't have a clue what it's talking about. Really, well, that's a lot of these songs I don't, but this is particularly one I don't. And it sounds like a poor attempt to go heavy metal that failed miserably. That's what I have written down here, and that's pretty much all that I have to say that I can think of about it. I mean, I just couldn't get into it really at all. There's not much melodically going on, not many changes. It's just kind of straightforward all the way through, and it pretty much sucked. So, what about you, brother?
Well, like I said, I kind of I mean, it's a pretty bad song. It's a train wreck, disjointed lyrics. I mean, like I said, they're swearing throughout. Well, there's like only one swear word in the whole song, but I think it's there just to kind of be edgy. But that's all I have to say about this particular track. And is that all you have to say, Steve?
I guess it is, Brother Z.
All righty. Well, then we go to the next track on the album, Dreams, another one of the singles on this album. Let me go ahead and say what singles. The first single was Best of Both Worlds, which went number 12 on the mainstream rock charts, Billboard mainstream rock charts.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
It went number 12, and then Dreams went number 6 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock charts, and that was the
Can believe
second
that.
single. Billboard Hot 100, it went 22. Love Walks In went Mainstream Rock charts number 4. Billboard Hot 100, 22. Summer Nights went number 33 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock charts, and Why Can't This Be Love went number 1 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock charts, and number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. So this was the second single off the album. Dreams, the beginning, when I hear it, I cringe. It's trying to be Jump all over again. I don't like this song. The chorus is not that bad. I can go with the chorus, but some good vocals though. I think there's some good vocals by Hagar, but verses are crap. Dated pop rock. Just the breakdown and solo is awesome. I love the solo and the breakdown on here. The ending is pretty cool. A little bit too long in my opinion, and kind of tries to be this epic song, and it's really not. And I think that's just about all I have. And then also it reappeared in the 90s for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. That's where I remember it from. I heard it watching that movie when I was young. And I like I said, the ending's pretty cool on it, and the solo at the end. I think the solos all through this track are particularly good. But now to you, Stephen, what do you think of this track?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that, like I said with the first track that I said is about, Why Can't This Be Love? This is kind of in the same realm as that, in my opinion. It's that song as far as the genre and the way it's structured and such. The intro to me was too long and it didn't fit with it. I don't think it should have even been there. But I think the chorus has a great melody, and the verses I can deal with. I probably would have done something different with it, but and overall I think they should have stuck to this principle. Like this song, kind of a more, I guess, softer rock sort of feel, I guess. I love the production on this one particularly too. I don't know. I just think that they did a great job for the song. They didn't try to over instrument it wise, I guess I could say, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They didn't add too many instruments, in other words, but I think they added just enough. Really, just a great overall track, and it just goes back to the thing. Like, to me, this don't really fit. I think they just wanted it out. They had to stick it on something to get it out there, so they just stuck it on this. So, but great track in my opinion. But
Okay.
back to you, brother.
And like I said, to me a dated track overall. I don't really like it. And I'm trying to find where this album split on the vinyl. I want to say it's split down the middle, but I'm fixing to make sure of that. I'm fixing to see here where it's split down the middle, and of course my phone's got to hit everything but what I'm trying to go to. But the next track on the album is Summer Nights. Summer Nights, a decent riff at the beginning. It's kind of a Zeppelin-esque riff, but rest of the song goes down the toilet, in my opinion. Stupid lyrics. There's rumors that there is a version with Diamond Dave on vocals. I would really like to hear that, and I really don't like it, and tries way too hard to be a party rock song. Hate the breakdown riff in the middle. It tries to be this kind of funky type riff or funky type breakdown. I really don't like it. Solo to it's whatever, and I hate the entrance back into the song at the end after the solo. And the song overall is too freaking long. So that's all I have for this particular track. And now to you, Stephen.
Well, back to the too long thing. I think the intro's way too long. In particular, the song itself, really, in length, I mean, it's fine in my opinion. It's just not really that great when it's going. But I think there's a great chord progression after the original introduction. Um, and I think they should have stuck to that chord progression. It sounds pretty good. Then they just go into something else, totally different for the verses and the chorus and everything. I mean, they should have stuck to that principle. And it would have fit the album a lot better. I mean, the whole album really, it has that feel to it, like they had a good idea. It's like I mean, if they would have stuck to that, not just, it's like they tried to go 100 places at the same time with this entire album, but it don't work like that. If you have a song idea, then just go with that idea, and don't try to have 100 different parts for a song. And especially with this song, it has way too many, like just different changes in it, just different feel changes. And the lyrics really don't, like you said, for the whole album, don't make a whole lot of sense. But really, with rock, it doesn't matter as much that with other genres. But in this one in particular, I mean, my main problem would be the structure. The structure just absolutely sucked, in my opinion. Um, and I don't know who was to in the songwriting process. It usually goes that somebody comes up with the music, somebody comes up with words. Like you said, Sammy Hagar is probably the one coming up with the words for the whole album. And that didn't turn out too well. So, but really, I mean, that's just kind of the mantra of the whole album, in my opinion. Just trying to go different places at the same time, and too many different places. And that's about it for me, brother, for this one. Not a great song.
Okay. And that's the end of side one. So then we get into side two with Best of Both Worlds. And first off, I mean, to me it seems like it's trying too hard to be a Robert Palmer type song, and I like some Robert Palmer stuff. And oddly enough, when they did do this song on tour for the 5150 tour, it was actually cut out of the live video they put out in support of this album. But they actually included part of Robert Palmer's track "Addicted to Love" in it. I don't like this song. Another attempt at a party rocker. I'm burnt out on this particular track. Just falls flat. Overall, I just put whatever, and with many dots at many periods at the end of it. And stupid song. And I did used to like this. This was one of the first tracks, one of the three tracks I liked on the first time I heard it. But now, not so much. So, yes, now to you, Stephen. What do you think of this particular track?
Best of both worlds. Really, the concept of the song itself, to me, I don't agree with at all. And some things it mentions I don't agree with. And that didn't help any. But other than that, the lead guitar sounds really dumb, to tell you the truth. And it just doesn't, well, I'm not going to say the lead guitar doesn't fit. I'm just going to say it wouldn't fit with anything, to tell you the truth, because it sounds just too squealy. It's like it's just trying to do it for effect. It's not even thinking about being in tune, or just being playing with any kind of melody or anything. The song is not good to start with, really, and the guitar doesn't help at all. The lyrics certainly don't help, and when you get them three things together, the song is just completely sucks, in my opinion. I'm not trying to be funny. Once again, it's just I mean, it's just my opinion. That they tried to do some things with it, and it's like they had a concept in mind, and they put themselves in a box, and it didn't work. That's
Yeah.
all I can say. It's like stuff that they tried to be like, it. They tried too hard, and they just put themselves in a box too much. I know I said that already, but I just want to put some emphasis on that, to not do that, because this is what it comes out like. If you just say, well, I'm going to do specifically this genre, and it's just going to be this, and it's not going to be anything else, and it's going to sound like, that's why you don't do that. In my opinion, that's probably what the thought process was, and it didn't turn out well. So
Yeah.
back to you.
All right. And I mean, like, I meant to say it at the beginning of this album review, but this whole album to me is trying to be 1984 all over again, and I think it fails miserably. But yeah, I don't like this song, and the solo to me sucks on this track. I don't like the solo at all. The solo's pretty bad. And then we move to the next track, Love Walks In. Love it. Great arranged song. A grower on me. I actually didn't like this one the first time I heard it. Good vocals. Good song overall. Best song on the album by far, in my opinion. And written about aliens, oddly enough, because I can't remember if Sammy Hagar said he was abducted by aliens or what the crap happened, but it's written about aliens. But love it, and this is more like it on the album, and to me a perfect song, good solo, and the lyric. Simon speaks as loud as words. What is that supposed to mean? That's kind of a dumb lyric. But overall, good stuff and a great track, and overall, good song. So now to you, Stephen.
Um, I can agree altogether with you pretty much. Great song altogether, I would say, is what I have written down here. So that's just what I'll say. And the only thing I can add is that I can hardly believe it's the same band as the rest of the album, with the exception of Dreams and Why Can't This Be Love. Those three that I just named off, the two, and then this Love Walks In, I kind of put in the same category in my mind. And the rest of the album, I kind of puts to the side as in its own universe out there somewhere, and it just doesn't make any sense. Any of it, it doesn't. The rest of the album doesn't tie itself together with this or each other of the songs, really, other than the fact that it sucks. But really, this one, um, like I said, I can't really believe that it's the same band. To be honest, it sounds like something a whole different band would do. Um, and that's just if it sounds like a totally different band on the same album, to me, that's just not the way it should be. I can see doing a little bit different genres and all that. Like maybe for example, if you did like a rock and blues album or something, that fits well. But to me, um, trying to go really hard rock, not this song in particular, but the majority of the album is trying to go hard rock or metal slash metal sort of, and just really, I mean, just doesn't go well with this type of song. It sounds like soft rock. It's kind of more, you know, keyboardy. Kind of more something. It sounds more like something Phil Collins or somebody like that would produce, if you know what I'm getting at. And
Yeah,
the
definitely.
rest of the album does not fit that classification whatsoever. Um, and with the exception of the other three, with and really that's all I could say. They should have stayed with that production. Honestly, I think it would have sounded good. Now as I think about it, if Phil Collins was to come in and produce for him, um, he could have made this album sound pretty decent, even with the bad songwriting. So I guess that's about all for me, brother. Great song individually, though. Back
Okay.
to you.
All right, and Then we move to the next track on the album, next to the last song on the album, the title track, 5150. I like this track once again. I think it would have been interesting to be an instrumental, but it's not, of course. But it would have been interesting. I mean, I've heard it said about "Girl Gone Bad" on 1984 that maybe it would have worked better as an instrumental. Maybe this would have as well. A cool song. I like the riff to it, and the theme for this particular track the theme I get is that he's dealing with a crazy girlfriend, but I mean still the lyrics are kind of questionable. I mean I kind of don't get why it's called 5150, because 5150 is police jargon for a mentally disturbed person. So I really don't know. The chorus is pretty cool, by far best solo on the album to me, and good stuff. And I love the entrance back into the song. I think that's after the guitar solo. I think that's pretty cool. But that's all I have. And now to you, Stephen.
Well, you know, all I've got written down on my notes here is that this is word for word what I have. It says not great at all / completely sucked. But you know, I have a little bit more because something you said kind of sparked something. The very title of this song, you know, it says something about this album and this particular song because, you know, like you said, this album was gonna be called, or they were gonna do something named 5150 because of the studio and just because of whatever reason, because they wanted to use that name. Is that correct?
Well, what
And
I understand, that's what I.
and so really, it seems like they wanted to use that name, so they just stuck it on to whatever next work they were going to do. And this song in particular feels like the same way. It's like they didn't. They was running out of song ideas, and towards the end of the album, and these last two, especially this next one after this, was definitely like this. But I mean, this one it seemed like they ran out of song ideas and they just said, well, you know what? The album name is 5150. Let's just name one 5150 and let's just pick a random rhythm and let's just let's just try to write something simple and just try to get it over with. Is what it seems like they tried to do. Like it seemed kind of like a desperate attempt to me to just try to finish the album. Um, really sucked. That's about all I can say. I mean, the guitar throughout this whole album was not really that good. Too many dive bombs. Um, you know, I just don't like it, to tell you the truth. This one
Okay,
in particular. But
okay.
to you.
All right. And yeah, I can't remember if I said it at the beginning, but 5150, like I just said, is police California police jargon for a mentally disturbed person, and also the name of Eddie Van Halen's studio. I can't remember if I said that at the beginning or not. If I did, you've already heard it. So there you go. But then we move to the final track on the album, Inside. Um Stupid song, terrible, pointless. What were they thinking at all? Trying to be some edgy techno heavy metal track with some funky rhythm to it. What? I put what with plenty of question marks. This should have been called 5150 because it's totally crazy and absurd. Sammy stretches his vocals way too friggin' far on this particular track. I put what once again down with many question marks. Weird track, too long. I put why with many question marks. And I hate this track. Worst song on the album by far. It tries to be edgy, but I mean, doesn't reach those heights at all. Stupid lyrics and chorus is terrible, bad solo, and this whole song is just crazy and stupid. So, um, terrible way to end this album off. So, now to you, Stephen. I got a feeling I know what this is going to be.
Well, the only thing that I disagree with you, anything what you just said that I disagree with, is that I think this is a great way to end off this album because it pretty much sums it all up, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yep.
But I mean, because it's just it's music all the way through, pretty much. And this song really isn't even a song, in my opinion. It's just kind of random crap put together. It seems like somebody just came up with some random groove and then they just went with it and just came up with a bunch of stupid crap to say and just rambled up stuff. Like, it sounds like something you would do when you was high or something, to be honest. Like, I I don't know. Just absolutely, it's absolute stupidity. Um, I mean, just I don't know. I just don't understand why you would put that on an album. It's just on a music album to put something like that on it. Even with an album like this, with all the songs not fitting anyway, this definitely doesn't fit with any, I mean, not only does not fit with this, it wouldn't fit with anything. Unless it was like on an album full of stuff that's just like this. So really, I would say it's a great way to end the album because it sums it up. This album sucks altogether, and that's pretty much it. And I have a few more comments, but I'll wait till we get through to the overall, makeup of the entire album.
Okay. But that all you got for this particular track?
This particular one, yes.
Okay. Well, there is a couple of tracks that didn't make this album. One was, I believe it's called Eagles Fly. That ended up on Sammy Hagar's 1987 solo album, I Never Said Goodbye. It was acoustic, and they took it off the album because they said it didn't fit. So, whatever the case may be with that. And there's another track called I Want Action, which the basis of the song has pretty much been recycled several different times by Eddie Van Halen. It was originally supposed to be on that song, and from what I understand, that song got pushed off this album for Inside, if I'm not bad wrong. And I mean, whatever. I mean, Inside, going back to that really quickly, that's one of the things, like, it seemed like they would have put on here for like as a hidden track or something, instead of like maybe a bonus track instead of a friggin' part of the album. I mean, I still don't understand what they thought they were doing with that particular track. But going back to I Want Action, it ended up in the late 80s when Valerie Bertinelli, who was formerly Eddie Van Halen's wife, she was on Saturday Night Live. He took that riff and turned it into, I believe it's called Stompin' or something like that, for a performance on the show with the Saturday Night Live band with G. Smith. Thought that was pretty cool. I thought he did a pretty cool performance with that. Then Steve Lukather of Toto used the riff and rhythm for a track on his solo album. I believe it's called like Cuts Like a Knife or something with a knife. And it eventually ended up on a Van Halen album with 1998's Van Halen 3, which was called Dirty Water Dog, which I actually didn't mind that track. But yeah, I mean, I listened to it prior to doing this review as well, and yeah, I understand why it was left off. I mean, it's a bland kind of hard rocker, and lyrics kind of don't make sense. Chorus is kind of stupid, and it's an unfinished track from the version I listened to. So there you go. But overall, this album, I mean, it's often compared to Eat 'em and Smile. Eat 'em and Smile wins that bet with me. I mean, that's also got Ted Templeman producing, who was the producer for all the previous Van Halen albums up to this one. He didn't come back for this album. He went with David Lee Roth. And I mean, I don't know how this album would have sounded if or how this album would have been with Ted Templeman. This era I really don't care for. I mean, overall, I think this era, this album kind of reminds me of comments on Van Halen 3. People said like the album's kind of disjointed. Actually, I don't mind Van Halen 3, to be honest with you. I mean, that may sound sacrilege or something like that, but I don't mind that album. But I mean, it's better than this album, probably, in my opinion. But I mean, I like some tracks from this era here and there, but I mean, kind of disjointed, kind of rushed. It feels like the band didn't mesh real well at this point. And I mean, really didn't mesh at all. I mean, they made a lot of money this album. I think every Hagar album went #1, and that's something that was used pretty prominently in the press and stuff like that. But and among the fan bases and stuff like that. But I mean, overall, this particular album I think is a pretty bad album. It's got the tracks like we've talked about we liked, but I mean, overall, a disjointed mess. I don't particularly like this album at all. Once again, I keep saying the same thing multiple times, but I mean, this whole era. I mean, Diamond Dave, heart and soul of Van Halen. If he would have stayed, I think we would have probably got Even Smile instead of this album. But this was Eddie Van Halen's album. I mean, I think all of these had a prominent part with him wanting to add keyboards in and kind of revolve the sound or evolve the sound of the band to something more AOR or contemporary, I guess you could say. But that's all I have. Not a very good album. The other albums of this era of the band, not very good either. I like some tracks on each of them, but yeah, not very good. But that's all I have now. To you, Stephen, what's your kind of final thoughts? That was my final thoughts for now. What's your final thoughts?
Well, I'll have a few comments and then I'll rate the album, which is going to be pretty interesting here. All the songs have about the same rhythm. To tell you the truth, and like I said before, I'm really talking more about the other than the big three, is I've kind of self-labeled it. The three that did well, and I'll just name them off again. In my opinion, when I'm talking about Why Can't This Be Love, Dreams, and Love Walks In. Really, the rest of them have about the same rhythm pattern and all. My other question would be, how in the living heck did this get released from Warner Records? Is what I want to know. I really don't know how or who sent this through, who let this get released through that. I don't know. Not have a clue in the world. And also, it's really, I've said this before, but I'll just go ahead and say it again. It's like they had a few really good songs written, but didn't have anything else to put it on. So they just stuck it on this, and then they tried to make the rest like a heavy metal / rock album, and shouldn't have at all. All the songs beside the three don't really have much of an identity, really. In my opinion, they just, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like identity, like you can't really follow it.
Yeah.
It's like it almost doesn't have any content. Just straight, just music, not really much to it. But overall, my rating for this album, 0 out of 10. I think, and also, this is just a joke, but I think this album should be taken off the market completely. That's what I think of this album. Like, I think the three that I just mentioned that's just really good should stay on the market as singles, but this overall album as a whole really should be taken off the market shouldn't be sold anymore. And that's it for me. I mean, it sucked as a whole. And I think Devin pretty much knew that he didn't like it, and he knew that I was probably going to bash it too, and that's why that he picked it. And I knew it was going to be entertaining to do, because the first few we did, like the first one, Derek and the Dominoes, we knew we were both pretty keen to do that one because we both were gonna like it. But we figured out it's probably better to do stuff that's not so well liked among people, and also that we know that we're not gonna both like, because at least one of us is gonna have to pretty much hate it, or it's not gonna be quite as entertaining. If all the way through the episode you're going, oh, that was a great song and great guitar playing here, and all this junk, and really people talk about Eddie Van Halen as a guitar player in a very high sense, and all the people talk about is Eruption solo, guitar solo, and all that, and I can understand that and all, and he innovated all this and he did this and that, but really, I on this album, I kind of hated the lead guitar altogether. I think it really shouldn't have even been there. But I think it would have been better off if they would have cut the lead guitar out altogether. So I guess that's about it for me, brother. And I guess you can close it out, whatever you do there. Say whatever you want to say there.
Okay. Well, that was pretty interesting what you just said, but I'm gonna give this album. Man, I kind of want to give it a 0 as well. I guess I will give it a 0 out of 10 as well. But I mean, some other interesting facts about this album. This was the first Van Halen album to feature no instrumentals by Eddie Van Halen. Um, this actually marked a different production as far as the previous albums went, because Eddie's guitar was usually high in the mix and frequently pushed to the left channel to simulate a live sound, but now it equally sat in the mix, and it seems like from what I'm reading here, it says that he was not a fan of the live mix that Templeman created. That may have been the case, the reason why he wanted it changed. And Mick Jones was brought in actually because Warner Brothers denied the band full creative latitude on this album. They wanted to have a producer on this album because, I mean, with Don Landy, like I said, he had worked with Van Halen prior to this album as an engineer on the previous albums. So, there you go. But, you was asking that why would someone sign off on this album? Van Halen at that point, they were one of the biggest rock bands in the world, maybe the biggest rock band in the world at that point. And they were very, very successful. And it's this album sold well. I think it was double platinum or something like that. It did really well. But a lot of people look back on it now and see it as dated and very kind of adult contemporary, kind of just dated 80s music. And when I think of this album, I think of a pizzeria, like an 80s pizza joint. I don't know why, but that's always what I think of. But and the album cover, I actually don't mind. I don't mind the ring logo. I've never minded that, and they did that to signify it was a new band. But overall, 5150, pretty bad album. Like I said, the tracks we've talked about we liked, but yeah, not a very good album. And maybe in the future we'll do some more of them, just to kind of go bash over, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's all I have for this album. Do you have a pick of the week, Stephen?
To review?
Huh?
To review or to listen to?
To listen to for the week.
I would say probably Cream, Wheels of Fire.
Okay. That's a good one. And As for me, man, I guess the one I would pick would be David Lee Roth, See Them and Smile. And like it's the much better album compared to this one. And like I said, I was talking about the album cover. The album cover, it features, I can't remember the guy's name for this album cover, but he was like an athlete or something. He was a friend of Hagar's. And man, them dogs are barking in the background if you can hear that. But I mean, he was a friend of Hagar, and I mean, they were. I don't mind the album cover. I think the album cover is okay, but and I think the logo's okay. But I mean, it's wings, not rings for Van Halen. I mean, Van Halen's Van Halen, and this is not. This to me is Van Hagar. But I mean, nothing. Like I said, nothing against the people who like this era of the band. I mean, like I said, I like tracks here and there too. But this to me is a downgrade compared to those previous albums. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this. You got any other thoughts on this particular album or this review, Stephen?
Well, my only other thought would be, like you said, where did they get 5150? Like, well, you said the couple of things that it could have been why they named it that, but as far as a logical reason of what that means, probably they don't even know, to tell you the truth. It just seems to kind of stick out as a name. 5150 as an album name. I mean, that's pretty unique, to tell you the truth. Probably not much anything like that's ever been done, or much ever will be much. Usually it's like either a one-word thing or like a 2 or 3 word deal, at least. At the most 3. But to be just a number is pretty rare. And in my opinion, it's not a really good idea. And I guess
Okay.
I guess that's about all for that. Well, as far as the album cover, I don't really care for the album cover either.
Okay.
Because it's like a dude holding up something like a ring or whatever, and I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. And yeah, that's all I have. We're gonna have some different episodes coming out here pretty soon. And hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you all for watching or listening. This will be up on the Anchor podcasting app, anchor.fm, as well as YouTube. And go support our YouTube channels, the Dunnigan Mott Music and Movie Podcast YouTube channel, Stephen Mott's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, as well as the Danger Zone Podcast, which is something I just started. And yeah, I've really enjoyed doing this. And what do you got in mind for next week to review, Stephen?
Well, to tell you the truth, when you asked about an album recommendation or whatever to listen to, that's the only thing I could think of was Cream Wheels of Fire, because that's kind of what I've been studying. I've been listening to a lot of that kind of stuff lately, kind of
Okay.
studying about the differences, and really that's what I would want to review for this week also.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty cool.
Because I mean, I've been really into that kind of stuff. And other than that, I've been listening to a lot of, I know this is kind of off the wall too, but I've been listening to a lot of Merle Haggard and some of his older stuff and some of his, I've been trying to check out some of his gospel things and all that. And he's got more gospel stuff than I thought he did.
Yeah.
But other than that, I guess next week it'll be Cream Wheels of Fire for us, which I view as, one of my favorite Cream albums, which I haven't studied that in depth as I probably should, which I will try to in the future. But I guess that's about it, brother. That one will be pretty interesting. We'll probably be indifferent on that one as well, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's been the Dunnigan Mott Movie and Music Podcast reboot. I do want to address the reboot. What I meant by reboot is that we're just kind of, I thought we would start from scratch since it's been a little while since we recorded. That's what I meant by the reboot thing. But hope you all enjoyed this episode. Thank you all for watching or listening. And we'll be back next time with a review of Cream Wheels of Fire. So stay safe, stay healthy. God bless you all. And as I always say, see you next time.